What's up, MMA fans? I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of everything that's gone on since I haven't done a video in a few, and I do apologize for that. Again, life is always throwing curveballs here and there, so just get on, get off, make a Bills video here and there, but definitely I've been keeping up with MMA and whatnot, just haven't made a vid in a while. And the prediction videos, I don't know if I would continue to do the prediction videos, because they're kind of, to predict this sport is so hard. I mean, they are fun to see if you would be correct in that regard, but more recapping it is a little bit more concise and, you know, than the predictions. But nevertheless, I'm going to do a little bit of a recap going back to, let's go back to UFC 102, 103, and then into the Strikeforce show that just passed. Obviously, Fedor, you know, continues his reign with the right hand from hell. That just totally. A lot of people thought Rogers had the chin and the tools to, you know, the size to handle Fedor, and for one brief moment in the fight, he seemed to, when he was on the ground. Fedor weathered that storm pretty good and switched for the armbar and didn't get it, but went into the second round, and you know, there was not a lot of much of action. I know Fedor had a flurry on the fence, and which had Rogers covering up, and then once they came off the fence, Fedor just got light on his feet and just went right into the right, and just that was it for Rogers. Wow, what can you say? I mean, this guy is still on top. People that, you know, the UFC purists out there, Dana White, whoever else can come out and knock him all they want, but you know, in this sport, as volatile as it is and as fickle as it is in terms of, you know, a guy can just get caught with one shot and be knocked out, and on that given night, he's just, you know, it happens, and we've seen it happen with GSP and Sarah. I mean, at the end of the day, who's the better fighter? Overall skills and, you know, athleticism, size, speed. You know, it's GSP, but that one given night, Sarah was able to catch him and knock him out, and we've seen it happen before. And just how this guy continues to still keep the mental focus, and you know, everybody's gunning for him, everybody wants a shot at him, everybody wants to make their name off being the first guy to legitimately and wholeheartedly beat him. And Rogers looked like he might have fit that bill, a hungry guy who went out and destroyed Arlovsky. Fedor just continues to show why he is the best heavyweight out there, and definitely could, you know, say he is the best MMA fighter out there. You know, there'll be the Anderson Silva arguments and the GSP arguments, but I don't see how you can take a guy's body of work and match it up against Fedor's and say he's better, especially in the heavyweight division. And saying that he doesn't fight in the UFC is no longer an argument. I think their heavyweight division's a little bit overrated. I think Cain Velasquez is a real player in that division, but Carwin's still a bit suspect to me. Lesnar doesn't look like he's going to fight for a while. I mean, 4-1 record, and the guy looks like he's going to be sick and out of the game for quite a while. How long he takes to regain his strength and then get back into training and be ready for a fight, one never knows. And it's kind of a recluse a bit, and maybe the pressure gets to him. Kind of disappeared off the scene from the WWF, WWE, whatever, and then all of a sudden reappeared when he got hungry and needed money again. And maybe it's too much for him. Who knows? But he did get sick, and do wish him well. Hope he gets better, but. As far as the UFC heavyweight division goes, I don't see a lot of real tests for Fedor in the division. I don't. Nogueira, who he's destroyed. Maybe a guy like Dos Santos or Velasquez, Mir. I think Fedor would destroy. Who else is there? But anyway. Enough about that. UFC 02, it was Couture's last stint at heavyweight before he retreated back to 205 again. That's kind of what he does. It's kind of his MO. He wins a few fights at heavyweight, loses a few fights at heavyweight, then goes back down to 205, and then, same pattern there, bolts back up, then gets divorced, then gets with I'm just joking. Anyway, And Couture, the two fights I'll talk about from that card is the Marquardt and Mina fight, where Marquardt just really exposed Mina's one-dimensional skills as a fighter and a mixed martial artist, and just basically just let him jump right into a straight right. It was just ugly. I think he threw a leg kick and just threw the straight right and just totally knocked Mina out. And that was it. And Nate, he's definitely become a lot more of a finisher in his last, I'd want to say, 3 to 4 fights. And there was always accused of going to decisions and stuff like that, but definitely has come out and shown that he's a true beast. And I definitely hope that they can re-sign Dan Henderson and let those two go at it for the right to fight the winner of Belfort and Silva, which I understand why the UFC is doing it. I mean, Belfort is a name. A lot of UFC fans remember him, and they kind of think that just because a guy's not in the UFC, he's not fighting anymore. I mean, he's made the rounds. He's went to the King of Cage, a little bit in Pride. I think one fight in Strikeforce, but he's made the rounds. He's back in the UFC. He's found a home affliction, of course. He's at 185, which is definitely a great weight for him, a weight that he possibly should have been at for a long time, but with the expansion of the sport, he's been able to find a home there and really carve out a niche for himself. And I think he's gonna, possibly give Anderson a good fight, and it'll be a great fight to watch. But I think, hopefully Dan Henderson can get re-signed, and they can, put him and Marquardt in the cage together, and the winner of that fight gets the next shot at the middleweight championship. And then there was the Couture-Nogueira fight, where Couture just was, I hate to say it, he was just really outclassed by Nogueira, even on the ground. Nogueira swept him, had him in a bunch of bad positions, a submission attempt. It looked like it was an arm triangle. It definitely looked like it was going to put Couture out, but Couture survived it. And even on the feet, Nogueira just really exposed Randy's hands and put Randy down quite a bit in that fight. And Nogueira's really not known for putting anybody down. Based on the last fight I saw with Couture, and then this one looks like God bless him, he's really hung in the game a long time. It looks like Father Time is catching up to Randy a little bit. And now on to 103. The headliner was Franklin and Belfort, and in that card, obviously the biggest fight was, I really felt like the UFC for a little while was trying to get Franklin a title. They moved him up to 205, but with the Wrecking Ball Machida, Machida having already beat Franklin at 205 in another organization, they were like, well, that's a no-go, and Franklin is a little small for the division. And then to bring him back to 185 would have been pointless, because he's already been killed by Anderson Silva twice. So let's move him up to, let's try to find this niche of 195, which I felt like was a good weight class for him. Definitely something that could have been, it was definitely doable, I think, in a lot of ways. It was definitely something that he could have done. But nevertheless, he goes in, he gets knocked out by Vitor Belfort very, very quickly in the first round. And, 3 minutes into the first round, they kind of felt each other out, and Vitor just caught him. And then followed up on the ground, and Rich was he was out. Also that night, we kind of saw in my opinion, the final demise of Cro Cop. I mean, he just doesn't look like he has it in him anymore to fight, has the mental wherewithal. And one of my biggest criticisms of Cro Cop is always that he was a front runner. If the guy wasn't dictating the pace of a fight, he got into a tough fight, he really would break and just wilt in a fight. And Junior Dos Santos, he's a good fighter. He's definitely a good fighter. He got beat up a little bit. Cro Cop did give it to him a little bit. His face was a little beat up in that fight, but nevertheless, big props to Dos Santos. And Cro Cop apparently has another fight with Ben Rothwell, so we'll see how that goes. that might be his last shot, I think, if he loses that fight, to be honest with you. And I think the biggest story of this one was the arrival of Paul Daly, a guy we've seen in Elite XC, Strikeforce, King of the Cage. He just comes out and just takes it to Martin Kampmann. He did not let Martin Kampmann survive that fight, and he definitely showed some nasty stand-up. And Martin Kampmann, that's his niche, known as a Dutch, kickboxer, one of those guys along with that lineage. But Daly just took it to him, and that 170-pound division has become a murderer's row. And GSP, I mean, he has any thoughts about going up to 185, I think there's a good line of guys just waiting to get to him. I mean, you have Hardy, who just had a spectacular performance against Swick. Daly, who looks like he's going to get another fight before he might get a shot at GSP, or Hardy, whoever wins that fight. So there's a lot for GSP in that 170-pound division. So we'll just stay tuned. But Daly definitely looked awesome in his UFC debut. Now, in the UFC 104 was obviously the biggest storyline from that was the Machida Shogun debacle, and anybody who saw that fight and wasn't under the influence of alcohol or a biased opinion knows that Machida lost that fight. I mean, Shogun took it to him. I mean, I think you could have given Machida the third round maybe if you wanted to be nice, but it was definitely 4 rounds to 1 Shogun, no doubt about it. And so much moreover that, even Dana White knew at the end of the night that the wrong guy got picked to win that fight. And obviously the rematch has been signed for UFC 113, so hopefully all those wrongs can be righted. A few other headlines from the card, really. Cain Velasquez beating Rothwell, had him pinned up against the cage, threw some punches, and kind of just was a little well, why'd you stop the fight? Well, he was just sitting there taking punches and not doing anything about it. And I think Velasquez showed some good hands in that fight. In the first round, he was clipping Rothwell well. And sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that, but it was definitely another good showing for Cain Velasquez. And we'll see what happens as he goes forward. I hope he gets a chance to maybe take on Shane Carwin, or his fight with Nogueira's off now because of Nogueira's staph infection. So maybe him and Carwin can get together and see about an interim title, because I think that's going to be a possibility with Brock's illness now. And the other, I think the other big story was Anthony Johnson not making weight, and how the guy looked like a 205-pounder in there fighting a 170-pounder. That fight should have never happened. And things like that, people can get seriously hurt when there's such a big weight disparity in a fight. And I just, I think I was a fan of Anthony Johnson's, but to come in so heavy and just to, I definitely don't think he should have been obviously not given any credit for winning a fight like that. But on to the card we just got to see, which was a free card, which is always awesome. It was a really good card. Ross Pearson looked great at 155. He really destroyed Aaron Riley, and I think Aaron Riley's one of those tough journeyman fighters whose better days are behind him. He's just a guy who's a grinder, but Pearson showed a lot of good skills in there, and definitely a lot more than he did in the final with Andre Winter, where it was rather boring fight. But those two guys, they look like they have talent, and they kind of cancel each other out. So hopefully we'll see more of them. Terry Etzem is a guy I really want to see on a main card, a guy I want to see pushed a little more. He's a guy that you definitely got to bring over the States, let us fans stateside see more of him, because he's leaving him on the undercards. He's kind of wasting away. I think he's a 155er who could definitely make noise if you just turn him loose on some of the better 155ers. Him in a fight like with Nate Diaz or somebody along those lines, I think would be great. And the next fight was Matt Brown against James Wilkes, and I saw this coming. I thought Brown was just one of those angry dudes who, Wilkes just doesn't look like he wants to get into an ugly fight. I don't know, something about the guy, and once the fight got ugly, he just kind of he hung in there tough. I'll give him that. But Brown just took it to him and beat him in the third round. Finally, just made him turtle up and start taking punches and took the fight. And I give Brown credit. He went in this guy's country and took the fight from him. And big return for Michael Bisping against Dennis Kang, who's no joke. He's not a slouch, but Bisping went back to his roots a little more ground and pound, kind of like what we saw against Elvis Sinasek, Eric Schaefer in his first couple of fights in the UFC. Looked well. He got clipped early. He was able to survive it. He posed himself well. Coming off a big KO loss against Dan Henderson, he definitely didn't want to eat another shot and get knocked out again like before. So I give him credit. He definitely did a good job in winning that fight and getting himself back on the right track. I think he's toned back his attitude a little bit, more focused on his game and what he's got to do to get better. And he was given a pretty good opponent, and he handled him well, and I give him a lot of credit for it. The next fight was a definite shock for a lot of us because I thought Swick had this fight, and Hardy really showed that he's nobody to play around with. He definitely he ate Swick shots, and not too many people eat Swick shots. I mean, he hits pretty hard for a little skinny guy like that. He's got that wiry strength, but Hardy just seemed to walk right through him, and he rocked Swick, and I don't think we've seen Swick rocked ever really like that. And he had Swick wobbly quite a few times, and looked like the stronger fighter in there. Definitely the more, maybe the travel, the weight cut, something happened to Swick, because I know he had to skip quite a few time zones to get out there, but you got to play the hands that's dealt. So I mean, they have to come over here and fight sometimes too. So it's 50-50, but I think Dan Hardy's next fight will definitely be in the Eastern time zones, and he'll have to contend with that also. But it was a great fight for him. And on to the next fight was Couture versus Vera, and it's kind of an irony that Couture's ex-wife is fighting Brandon Vera's wife on the Strikeforce card. I think tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow. But nevertheless, this fight was a bit boring. Couture wanted no part of a stand-up exchange with Vera, and that was very obvious. I mean, I thought Vera should have been given the decision based on the level of damage that he was able to do once they did make distance. I can't, you pin a guy up against the cage and hold him there all day, but and then Couture would regain the position and just kind of do the same thing and bounce off and flurry a little bit, and never really hurt Vera to the point where Couture was hurt, and Couture looked like he could have been finished there with a couple of times. I know he got rocked in the first round, and the body kick definitely did it to him. So I gave Vera the fight on that alone because he was the closest to actually finishing the fight. But Couture is Couture, and he's going to get those close decisions. So nevertheless, it is what it is, and he's back at 205. Apparently he's going to fight Mark Coleman. I mean, that's a good fight for him. Two older guys, two old wrestlers, ground and pounders going at it, seeing who's better at it. So it should be a good fight. And then the day after tomorrow, we got Ortiz, Forrest Griffin too, and this is a big fight, I think, for Griffin. This is a really big fight, fighting a guy that beat him once, is coming off back surgery, hasn't fought in a long time, and him himself coming off that devastating loss to Anderson Silva, where he just got, it was just embarrassing. And then prior to that, he got knocked out against Rashad Evans. So I mean, he's coming off some tough KO losses, and this is a big fight for him. This is almost a must-win for him. Parisian off the card, just a bunch of issues for him. He doesn't have the money to pay for his fine or something to that effect. And wow, this guy used to be top 5, top 10 welterweight in the world. Now he's injured all the time. He's just almost out of the game. It's kind of sad because the guy's still relatively young. So we'll see what happens with that. But thanks for sticking with me, MMA fans. I hope you guys enjoyed the little segment here. We'll try to do some '06 predictions, see how it works out. But until then, you guys have a good one. Take care.